Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to Americans Learn. Today we got ourselves a fun video to check out here, and it is from Sabaton History. And huge shout out to our audience for actually telling us about this channel as well. So the video we're checking out is called Great War, World War One, Sabaton History, and you know what it is. First we get our history lesson, and then we have some fun by checking out a music video from Sabaton, of course. And look, as a favor for me, please support Sabaton. Follow them on all of their social media. They do great work. And if you haven't subscribed and followed them on all their social media, please get to it. If you have, you are awesome. But without further ado, let's check out Great War, World War One, Sabaton History, official. So grab yourself a tasty snack and a tasty beverage. And since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's get ready to pull up this video and enjoy it in a 3, a 2, a 1.
I'm Per from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History. The Battle of Passchendaele in 1917 was an Allied dream to break the stalemate of World War I. Instead, it produced casualties in the hundreds of thousands and remains a symbol for the futility of war.
We already covered the Battle of Passchendaele in our song Price of a Mile from the Art of War album, but it felt natural to return to it for the Great War.
And now here's the story, and then the song.
And the song is great.
It's great.
As it should be. All the songs are great from Sabaton. And if you aren't following them, the original link to the video that we are checking out here is in the description box below. They got great links. Follow them on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. YouTube. They have other YouTube channels as well. Please do so.
The Great War, La Grande Guerre, Der große Krieg. What exactly could have been so great about the War of 1914 to 1918 that it deserves that name? Cynical question indeed. As the writer H.G. Wells noted, many felt like this would be the war to end all wars. The war against German militarism, the war to reclaim French land, the Pan-Turanian War, and more. It was all of those and none of those. And let's say once the threat of militarism was gone, or once those lands had been reclaimed, there would be finally a lasting peace again, right? We know, of course, that nothing could have been further from the truth. Historians in general, and even historians of that war like myself, disagree about the exact causes of the outbreak of war in 1914. And there are, in fact, many to choose from, but few can deny that Europe had been chained to a whirling maelstrom of conflicting interests and alliances that was growing ever larger and more precarious, a Gordian knot which, when cut, meant disaster for the old world. There had been a great war before, you know. The war in 1815, in which another coalition of Europe's nations had fought against a mighty emperor and which had been called great by contemporary politicians and publishers. But Napoleon Bonaparte's defeat and the destruction of his French armies had not brought the everlasting peace many imagined would come. The Concert of Europe was designed to keep stability and peace in Europe, but that ultimately failed and opened the continent for total war. It could not prevent revolutions or war after war from breaking out as the decades rolled along.
It is interesting to point out that everyone, especially when these major conflicts, because there have been global conflicts before. I guess World War One just really took the spotlight, but throughout all those times, everyone would say, like, this is the war that will end it, or this war is going to be different, or this is the war that will end all wars, and never again. We humans know how to screw things up, don't we? We are the prime example of you can lead a horse to water, you can't force it to drink, and peace is unfortunately forever out of our grasp. And peace in our time, I'm so sorry for everyone watching. It's just not going to happen. I think we got to come to terms with that. We're just not ready yet for something like that.
And 100 years after Napoleon, the powder keg filled to the brim with the ambitions and hubris of Europe's leaders exploded once again into an all-engulfing war. If you want to know more about the Concert of Europe, we put a link in the video description.
And if you would like us to check out the Concert of Europe and have it on our channel, check it out, please type in the comment section below. Your feedback is fundamentally important.
Some called the First World War carefully the European War. The Times named it the Kaiser's War, but the terms Great War and World War had been on many lips even as the guns of August 1914 thundered in the east, the west, and the south of Europe. Nations worldwide, such as the United States, the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, Brazil, Italy, Japan, would all join the war, some sooner and some later. But even from the very start, a majority of people seemed aware of the fact that this war, though initially among European empires and their global possessions and mercantile connections, would have a lasting worldwide impact. Still, many intellectuals hailed the hostilities as the grand thunderstorm that would clear the air over Europe, and in the aftermath of which there would be a lasting peace. But after the first bloody months, as hundreds of thousands were killed, marching and charging recklessly into the modern rifles and machine guns of their enemies, the mood quickly soured. The entrenched machine gun became a symbol of how the great nations had opened a Pandora's box that they could not simply close again. And so wrote Maclean's magazine in October 1914. Some wars name themselves. This is the Great War. The high and mighty, the kings and statesmen, the bankers, the captains of industry had criminally failed to predict the level of insanity and the scale of death and suffering the soldiers on the ground, the fathers, the sons, the brothers, were to face for years with no end in sight. Gone quickly was the enthusiasm of the first weeks of the war, when troop trains were brightly colored with "to Paris" or "to Berlin," when the German army joked that they would just send the police to arrest the British army instead of bothering to send troops, when Russian officers swore off vodka for the duration of the war, when the war was the war that would be over by Christmas.
Everyone always says the war will be over. Again, how many times have you seen in history where you have a military commander or a king or an emperor, especially when in the modern era, saying, "Oh yeah, the war will be over by Christmas. Oh, we'll be done by Christmas." No, no. Wars don't end for jolly old Saint Nick or Sol Invictus. R.I.P. to Aurelian.
The battlefields of Verdun, the Isonzo River Valley, Galicia, the Tigris River, Sarikamish, the Argonne Forest, their names became synonymous with destruction and suffering. For the men stuck fighting the war, they bore more fitting names like the Meat Grinder, the Mountain that Eats Men, the Bone Mill. Being sent to the front at Flanders, for example, was pessimistically known as a death sentence. "Death rides a pale horse in Flanders," the Germans sang, and John McCrae's legendary poem In Flanders Fields described it as a place where the poppies blow between the crosses row on row. Men were no longer even fighting and dying on their feet like they had in earlier wars. Now they crawled, they hid, they hunkered down behind earth, wood, and concrete. Glory or honor were long gone. Instead, they fought enemies without even seeing them, with gas, with grenades, with long-range artillery. They slept in dugouts, they lived in trenches or waited in bunkers, and the constant drumming sound of being shelled took a harsh toll on the men's psyches, driving many insane with fear. There was no escape. On the Western Front, snipers and shrapnel barred every way out of the safety of the trenches. On the
And looking at this big picture right here, there are names and individuals and people who really stood out and did amazing feats of courage or held the line by themselves. And we have checked out a lot of videos here on Americans Learn, thanks to Sabaton History, about some of these people and how many unsung stories are not being told. How many stories are being ignored because, of course, let's face it, through time, eventually events and people are forgotten. We ourselves are also victims of that. Eventually, in time, all of us will be forgotten. All of us will be gone. And it's just huge shout out to Sabaton for doing the monumental task of talking about, singing, and doing stories about people who fought in conflicts in centuries past and in now current events.
Tigris, the desert heat, disease, and the floods of the river ground soldiers down. In the Alps, avalanches, ice, and bitter, bitter cold broke the men. For many soldiers, it was a life between the dead, tasting the sweet smell of decay, of rotten bodies that lay out there baking in the summer's heat of no man's land. The moans of the wounded and the slowly dying who could not be relieved haunted the soldiers' sleepless nights. Stuck in mud or the cold of winter, wounded soldiers who fell into flooded shell holes drowned, too weak to get out on their own. Men grew accustomed to the violence, to death, to killing. Ordinary men, you or me, became indifferent to the suffering of their opponents, brutally killing them with guns, clubs, knives in close combat. The death's head became a proudly worn symbol on many flags during this war. But even then, the men marched on. Despite the horrors, despite the hardships, the men endured year after year, battle after battle. The war grew larger, first in scope as more and more nations joined, then in magnitude as the mega battles of 1916, the year of battles, raised war to a level of horror never even before imagined. And battles raged and grew larger in the skies, on the seas, and even beneath them. From the hot deserts, the misty swamps, the frozen winters, the soldiers endured on the offensive and on the defensive. The Sabaton song, Great War, references the Battle of Passchendaele, which they have sung about before in The Price of a Mile. The Battle of Passchendaele is one of the more overlooked battles of the Great War, but it was significant. It certainly embodied the futility of the war. Only a small amount of territory was gained for the Allies at the cost of 500,000 or more soldiers. This was just one battle of dozens of battles on one single battlefront.
Oh my god, 500,000 souls for just what? A small piece of land? Oh, this won't be the first time nor the last time people die in that magnitude. My god.
In a war that had over a dozen major battle fronts. But even all this madness had to end. And when it did, the world had changed. 4 great empires had fallen, taking their kings and emperors with them. In their stead,
There's the Ottomans, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. What could possibly go wrong with these empires falling? It won't lay the groundwork for another war, for another sequel. Will it? What could possibly go wrong?
many places, the people rose up to rule themselves in democracies. Many new nations emerged, ready to take their destiny into their own hands, and victor and vanquished alike swore that such a war should never come again. The scale and the ferocity of the Great War should be a warning for future generations not to repeat the same mistakes, not to get dragged down into the abyss of inhuman destruction. The lessons of the war, in which we had learned to kill each other by the hundreds of thousands with gas and fire, aircraft and tank, should be an everlasting warning and lead to the triumph of peace over.
No, that's not going to happen. No peace in our time. Not going to happen at all. Man's inhumanity in man is a constant factor. And, of course, if there's always going to be politicians and individuals in power that want more, they'll find a way to make another war happen.
War. But peace did not triumph, nor did the violence stop with the end of the Great War. The fighting and the dying continued far beyond the armistice of November 11th, 1918, particularly, but not limited to, Eastern Europe and Russia, where the consequences of the war were revolution and civil strife. This led to a whole new generation of brutalized young men who embraced violence as a tool with which to establish power, and to further years of bloodshed as civilians died by the millions and warring factions rose and fell. In time, many of those bright young democracies would fail, as disillusion and delusion brought a wave of authoritarians to power. No, the peace that was to come did not come. The best advocates for such peace, actually, were, well, naturally, the veterans themselves. Even those lucky enough to escape the Great War without physical wounds, those who had not lost their hands, their feet, their eyesight, they still bore mental scars for the rest of their lives. There are enough tales of men who lived long lives after the Great War, but who even as old men woke during the night screaming at the top of their lungs about shells and incoming attacks. The memories of the Great War never left them. After 1918, the Great War was given many more names and would one day be better known as the First World War to many outside of Europe. But still the name the Great War stuck. Still it sticks. But the question remains, what was so great about it after all?
Passchendaele, 1917. No man's land. Not a great place to be.
Yep, nothing great about it. When you look at it, and yes, we will be playing the music very soon, the amount of lives lost, the unnecessary cruelty, the insanity of those in power that allowed this conflict to take place. You know, it's easy for us to maybe sit back and say, well, maybe this all could have been avoided. Maybe if clearer heads prevailed, there wouldn't have been a single shot fired. Unfortunately, Europe was a powder keg. You had empires that were ready to expand. There was colonialism as well. Let's face it, each of the empires in Europe had massive amounts of territories in Africa, Central America, South America, and the South Pacific, in Asia, each vying for control, each pushing each other to the limit. And of course, you also had within their empires political instability. Many of these empires were ruled by royal families, dukes, kings, emperors, etc. And there was a huge class divide, and many people didn't like the old system as is. So no matter what, even if there were people who were trying to do everything they could to prevent a war, something was going to light that powder keg and everything was going to explode. It was a no-win situation. Too much ego, too much pride, too much political instability. Each nation felt it was greater than the other. And because of many political incidents, not just one, many, World War I happened. And there was nothing great about it at all.
So this song, Great War, is the title track of the album, The Great War. Now, how did you decide that? Was that obvious or?
Yeah, no, it was not obviously at all. When I first heard the music for this song, I felt, oh, this is something epic. And a lot of thoughts came to my head. What is the topic for this song? But I couldn't nail it down until I saw the first draft of the artwork of the new album.
Wow.
Because I then felt, that's the song. And I was reading stories from Passchendaele, and somewhere along there, I found this story about the three brothers who served there. And as one fell, the other two knew that, okay, there's a telegram going home to their mom. And as the second fell, only one guy remains, and he know that his mom getting another telegram. And he said, I'm not going to give her the third, so I'm going to come home myself. That was a story that made me think a lot, and it inspired to writing the lyrics.
Did he come home?
He did come home.
He did come home. Because that battle, that was one of the most depressing parts, one of the most depressing years of a very depressing war. You have covered Passchendaele before in The Price of a Mile.
That's true. And actually, it's referred to in the lyrics of this one a little bit. So there's some teasing to
tie them together.
Yeah, to tie them together.
Is it a song that, are you guys, when you guys go on tour to support the album, is this something you're definitely going to be playing like every night?
We don't know that yet. It's up to all you who watches this as well. What the fans really like is, if they like the song.
Well, that's true. We've seen.
And Sabaton has a huge following. Been listening to a lot of their music too. I have to say, I'm so glad we actually found this channel too. Thanks to you, the audience. because one, we get our learn on, two, we get some awesome music, and three, we're having fun all around. But it's also important, hey, to support Sabaton and Sabaton history. So do the right thing and support their work.
With songs like Panzerkampf that became fan favorites that weren't fan favorites. So you guys out there, it really is up to you what songs Sabaton will be playing and stuff. But how can you know if you like this song or not if you've never heard this song? So, ladies and gentlemen, right now you get to hear a little unreleased Sabaton music. Here's a little bit of Great War. Well, that was a little bit of Great War, the title track of Sabaton's upcoming album, The Great War, which comes out July 19th.
And this is Sabaton History. See you next week. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sabaton History channel. Also, check out Indie's other channels. And if you also want to support us on Patreon, we'd be more than happy because that's what really makes this happen.
As we should. So, you know what the rules are. You know what the game is. We get to pull up the music, the song, Great War by Sabaton. So, first and foremost, I'm going to play the song in its full entirety because all of us should listen to it and check it out because it is awesome. It's going to be awesome. This isn't open for a debate. So, for everyone that's tuning in and watching right now, please be sure to support Sabaton History. And now grab yourself another tasty snack and a tasty beverage, and let's pull up this awesome song in a 3, a 2, a 1.
We're dim in lies, I'm paralyzed, my brother's eyes are gone. And he shall be buried here, nameless marks his grave. Mother home, get a telegram and shed a tear of grief. Mud and blood in foreign land, trying to understand. Where is this greatness of it told? This is the life that we've been sold. Is this a worthy sacrifice? Great war, and we're gonna take more. Great war, I keep on marching on. I play the great score. There will be no encore. Great war, the one to end all wars. Standing here, I'm full of fear with bodies at my feet. Over there in the other trench, bullets wear my name. Lead ahead, as the captain said, and show them no remorse. Who am I to understand? What have I become? I do my duties, pay the price. I do the worthy sacrifice. I know my deeds are not in vain. Great war, and we're gonna take more. Great war, I keep on marching on. I play the great score. There will be no encore. Great war, the one to end all wars. And feet by feet will be the place of the mile here. Though men are falling, we see heroes rise. We face the heat as we are fighting until the dawn. So follow me and we will right our own history.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, even hearing the lyrics of the song, for example, Great War, I cannot take no more. Great tour, I keep marching on. I played a great score. There will be no encore. Great war, the war that end all wars, and even the lines before it. Where is this greatness I've been told? This is the lies we've been sold. Is this a worthy sacrifice? The lives lost during that horrific conflict for reasons that are just petty. Man's inhumanity demand. We have to be better, especially in this current day and age. Do I see peace in our time happening anytime soon? No. But we can be better to each other, and maybe a better future will come. Maybe. I will not make any promises here, but I definitely want to give a huge shout out to Sabaton History, for doing such phenomenal, detailed work, informing the audience, and through song, through history, they've been able to do great work, and I encourage everyone to please support them. The original link to the video is in the description box below, so please get to it right away, as soon as possible. And to everyone that's watching, if this is the kind of content you like us checking out here on Americans Learn, please give us your feedback. If there's any other videos that we should check out about the First World War, or about the battles that took place, or individuals, please type in the comment section below. We do read the comments. Your feedback is so important, because look how fast our channel is growing. For that, we are grateful for all the support. Until then, everyone, seriously, take good care of yourselves, each other, and maybe someday, not today, we could have peace in our time. Maybe. Wouldn't that be a sight?